Alright, so what we're gonna talk about first today, with the social studies department, are Lorena ISD ratings system. Our ratings, and each person has one of these out in front of them. As you can see, in Lorena ISD overall, we scored a 92. That was what was published to everybody. Overall rating was an A. Student achievement domain was an A. Our school progress is where we need to see some growth. We had a B in that. Our growth was a C. Relative performance a B. And then closing the gap between achievement groups was an A for the ISD. Middle school is an 88. That's going to be a B. I don't know how it's going to be viewed in the area after having an ISD rating of an A. Middle school's a B when they publish individual schools next year. We met standard as a B. Our student achievement domain was an 89, so we're right there near an A. The one that brings us down the most is our progress, and that we're at a 78 overall there. Our Met standard, our closing the gap's an 88, so I think those are going to be quick to get up to an A, but our school progress needs to go up. So our conversation today is how we're going to show progress and show achievement in our social studies test. So do you all have any?
So are we at a 77 because we have good kids and so there's not a whole lot of room for them to move? You know what I'm saying? Or are we, because I mean, once you get to a certain point, it's hard to, I mean, like if your kids are scoring pretty high, I mean, it's hard to show progress when there's not a whole lot
If
of
everybody
progress
passes and then next year one person doesn't pass, you actually decline.
I think you're correct. Based on our group of 8th graders last year, we had such a percentage of high achievers that they couldn't make that progress that the state thinks is needed because they've already been in the highest category.
So there's just nowhere for them to go.
Yes, once you get commended, or what is it called again? I can't even remember the term.
There's
masters.
Masters.
Once you get to that masters, you have to stay in the masters, but you still have to even get better than what you got in the masters to begin with.
I mean, it's easy to show improvement if you're at 50.
For sure.
But if you're at 98, improvement's hard to get.
Well,
It's a lot easier to go down from 98 than it is to go up.
I think that we had two students, as 7th graders, score perfect, and then scored high 90s in 8th grade, and they hurt us.
Hurt us, right?
I mean, you scored 98 and hurt your school. That's not really anything we're going to change, but I mean, it kind of shows
The problem with the system.
Well, and what kind of pressure? I mean, you can't go to the kid and be like, okay, you made 100 last year, so you got to make 100 this year, or you're gonna go down. I mean,
Yeah, that's too much pressure. Stars enough is pressure.
Yeah, star in general is within that pressure.
staying in the masters. That might be one thing. I know that the big term nowadays is disaggregated data. We don't have enough students to always have the minority groupings. So we don't have subgroups very often. The one group we really have to focus on is our Hispanic subgroup, and that fluctuates a lot from grade to grade in our Hispanic and socioeconomic ability levels because our subgroup is like 20. And I mean, with 20 kids, we could have 5 of those kids be special ed one year, a special ed distinction one year, and then the next year have none of them be a special ed distinction because there's such a small group. So that kind of, I think that there is some effect there in that progress rating. But those are our 2 subgroups that we consistently have. We don't consistently have African American subgroups, even though I think that's starting to change a little bit, isn't it? In the lower grades, we're getting.
I think maybe in the lower
In the
grades
lower
we
grades,
are
I think we are
entitled.
too.
Yeah, we're
So that'll
entitled,
come up, but I don't think we've ever had an Asian American subdivision.
No.
Subgroup.
We don't have enough to make it.
I think we had like 2 kids a grade tops.
And even African American, we barely have enough to, so it's usually just Hispanics.
Hispanic and socioeconomic. Right.
Hispanic socio and then SPED really hurt us this year. We've got to get SPED to pass.
which again goes to show you how the system is flawed, because we expect these students on a daily basis to have all of this help, and then yet they're supposed to take the exact same test.
Yes, no modified tests.
Everybody else.
Same length,
And the state requires us to modify for these children, yet on their own test, they don't allow us to modify, other than just reading.
Yeah,
Well-
and most of them do have reading assistants.
How can we mimic? Is there any way we could actually mimic that?
Well,
With-
we don't have very few kids. I think there's like one student who still has modified tests on their. I mean, they've tried to get rid of that, trying to make the IEPs look.
Yeah, but the only thing we allow, mostly the only thing we allow nowadays is oral assistance and then extra time.
Or a chart,
Yeah, they get a supplemental aid,
which we've got it. That's something that we can work on.
making this better.
Trying to
We've
make,
tried, but
I know,
we
but
can,
I mean-
we can improve.
and that might be something to like go into other districts. I mean, like, look, what supplemental aids do
So,
you use?
as a reading teacher and writing teacher, our supplemental aids are easy. Like, I know we can't have words on them, but for our essays, I give them the outline of their pre-writing, like there's the boxes. And they know exactly what those boxes are, because we've been filling them in forever. What type, I don't even know where
Well, we
y'all
gave them
begin for
last
social
year.
studies.
We gave them a blank map that showed, it was the map that showed the progression of America as we grew, as we went westward expansion. And that might be something that we just need to focus more on, having them really
Fill
work
out
at
that map.
memorizing that. So that they can do it, because I tell all of my kids before they get started to draw their blob map, which is essentially what those kids are doing. And then putting that in learning, knowing what each part
All
is,
the
when we got
details.
it, and the date, and being able to fill that in, because if you can just get those little pieces, sometimes it helps you on a question.
Maybe we need to spend, when we break into our social studies L2, spend more time with those sped kids on
Just that.
manipulating the
Supplemental.
supplemental aids.
Yeah, I mean,
Not necessarily worrying about content so much as let's learn how to use these supplemental aids.
The other thing that's on is a timeline, but it's just like boxes on a timeline. Like
It's not.
they have to know the dates.
I thought we could put
But
the
I
dates,
think
we
we
could
could
put the
dates.
years, we just couldn't put
But
anything
you
else.
can put, but we yeah, we can put the dates, we just can't put
And that's another thing, talking about manipulating the supplemental aids and going through with our sped kids, and okay, this is what was going, and being able to have them where they can fill that in.
Yeah, just going over and over and over and over what goes in this box, what goes on this map, you know what?
And then once you've done
How do
that,
you use this?
then going through like with an old,
And how does
with
this
an old test,
aid help you with this question?
how could it help you possibly?
Is that
And
what
it's
that-
not gonna help with everything.
I know that for the 8th graders, I have 2 8th graders that are in my STAR reading lab, and they both bombed, and I know you teach 8th, you're one of the 8th grade, they both bombed the first math quiz. So I know
I
that
didn't do that.
what they did was they memorized, instead of memorizing the map, they memorized the numbers.
Yeah.
So they memorized, one was the Mississippi River, so they memorized that one was the Mississippi River, and as soon as you change those numbers,
They lost.
done.
And that's along the same lines with my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like today for my 8th graders, because I've been having them, instead of drawing a picture, having them write the sentence from the textbook that uses the word.
Yeah.
And I went through in their test today, I literally took, and I had to manipulate some of them to make sense, but their vocabulary test is fill in the blank, but it's sentences straight from the book using the word.
Yeah.
Because I told the kids, I was like, no one's gonna walk up to you and ask you, what does propaganda mean? They're gonna walk up and they're gonna use it in a sentence,
And you have to know.
and
what
you
they
have
mean.
to know and be able to understand. And I think for so long, it's just been kill and drill. We've just had, memorize it, and then I'd be able to identify, oh, I can match these words up with this definition. Well, it doesn't do you any good.
You
And
have
I
to be
think,
able to apply it.
and I think that that's part of with STAR, with our reading and being able to read, is if with vocabulary, if they know how to use them, then when they see those words,
So that really needs to be a change across all subject
Yep.
areas, not just social studies. That's not a,
Okay.
Yeah.
that's every subject.
Yeah.
Needs to change how we're doing.
I mean, I know my kids, when we work on vocabulary, I try and get them to write sentences, but I don't ever think about doing the sentences from the book. So I go back and look at it, and they've written, there was a drought. Okay, that sentence doesn't tell me that you know what a drought is.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, I put it at the end of the sentence, this works, this is what you wanted. I'm like, great, you have no idea what that actually means in context, though. You just
Looking
put it at the
at
end of the
looking at
sentence.
my class, the only one that I do anything close to that is poetry, where I tell them when we go over vocab, the only The only unit where I don't have them, use real definitions is poetry. And I tell them, I just need you to know what the term means. What is, and I go, you can give me 3 words that show me you know what the term means. I don't need an official dictionary definition.
Right.
But I think that's something that if we all change that, know the definition but know how to use it.
Well, that's part of our literacy focus too, because if across the board we're working on vocabulary, kind of looking at it in a different way.
That's,
I like that. So,
too bad y'all are Thursday of Data Day and not Monday of Data Day.
Right. Add it to the agenda.
Could have put that in on all of them.
You gotta start with the good ones, you know.
I know.
save the best for last. So learn your lesson on that one.
That's stressful. Because it was the most stressful.
Yes, you missed it. We've come a long way. This used to be like tears
Yeah,
regularly
sure.
every time. Like if you laugh, I'm serious.
She's very
I
serious.
trust you,
promise.
I believe
Yeah.
you.
Like Data Days brought tears.
We've had lots of changes in the department for the successes that we've had, so,
But the thing is, they've also improved by like 40%.
yeah.
Like, and that's not really an exaggeration. I think y'all went from like the lowest we were at was 40s, high 40s.
No, we were in the
lowest.
60s.
Yeah,
60s.
We went from 60s, and this year we were at 80.
Yeah, almost 90.
2 years. Lots of tears.
Nice.
There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
They weren't though. If they were successful
Well,
teachers, you're good.
Alright, so another, closing the gap, so we gotta look at how we do vocab across the board to close that gap. Because if they're not understanding,
Well, and that helps too with your your ELL kids too, when you're looking at vocabulary a little differently, because they might be able to spout you a definition, but they really need to be able to use it, and that would help them too.
yeah, that's part of our progress.
And when thinking about, like, just in reference to the STAR test in general, using that academic vocabulary on the forward, where we kind of know how they're going to ask questions and what words we're going to use. I know, like with science yesterday, and we even had that same discussion last year with a question that was on a test, but the word limitations was used. Well, if you go and you look at the TEAC, the process standard, they have to know the limitations of whatever we were talking about. And so just knowing how specific we have to get is kind of crazy, but the kids have to know those words. But then I also gave the suggestion of what we've done to some of our tests with vocabulary, where we, like, within the question, we just went ahead and put the definition or synonyms of what that word means, so that they can at least relate it another time there and kind of practice using that
So
throughout.
is that something we need to do with our sped kids?
I mean,
I don't wanna make y'all write multiple copies of every test.
Well, that might
But
be.
is there could y'all get a synonym bank for them? Like, at least for the test that, if it does say what are the limitations of yada yada yada, they can have a synonym,
bad
a
idea.
synonym
That's not a
bank.
bad idea. When we go
Yeah.
through our test of picking words and creating for the test, because honestly, I don't care until we get to benchmarks. Some of like on our common assessments, I don't care if they use a dictionary.
right.
Because they're not, which I think is the craziest thing that Star won't let them use it. State
Yeah,
won't let
they
them
use it on the
dictionary.
reading test, but not on the
No,
social studies test, which
They
is
use it
mostly
on
reading.
science now too, I think, can't they?
Mm-mm.
Oh, they get a calculator on
I
science.
get a calculator, but.
But just looking up words, because they might see it again. Not the vocabulary part, obviously, but on common assessments, we don't have that. And that might be something that we want to push out, Jenny, is encouraging the use of dictionaries on common assessments.
Okay.
Yeah, I think every teacher, I know the English teachers already have their dictionaries.
I have
anywhere.
5.
We
I need to
should
check out
have
mine.
enough.
I
I have one that I borrowed from Coach James.
I have
one that I borrowed from Cargill.
I have 20 in my room.
Well, there's
Yeah.
plenty in the book room, because
Yeah.
we have enough because
We
of Star.
bought
should-
new dictionaries, even though I don't like the new dictionaries, I prefer the Black
Ones.
Thorndike. That's what I told her, so I gave my new dictionaries. I think each English teacher got 10 new dictionaries a year ago.
Okay.
So, and there was already enough for each teacher to have 15 to 20 anyway.
Yeah.
We almost have a 1-to-1 ratio
I think we
at our school.
do.
I
I
think
I
we're-
know at Star, one of those
We're-
days we had them.
We're pretty,
We're real close.
We're really close to 1-to-1 ratio.
When it's the whole school, I don't know.
Of course, some of them are
Whatever
trying
it
to
is.
fall apart.
I think that if it's the whole school, I think we're just short.